Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Shelton Commission meeting. Would you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see everybody. It's kind of a one-sided thing. Just because he's wearing the uniform doesn't mean he'll arrest you if you sit on that side of the building, though. He's a very nice lieutenant. In fact, he's going to start the commission meeting tonight and give us our police department annual report. This is Lieutenant Les Watson. Take it over.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, Mr. O'Leary. I'm here tonight to give you an idea of our activity in 2012, report to you the 2012 Police Department's annual report. I want to start by pointing out that this is a great deal of hard work that was put together primarily by Sarah and Lynn in our records office in compiling these, not just the statistics, but the graphs, etc. And their work goes back for months and was actually completed today. A lot of the statistics that were provided by WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and some of that data wasn't even entered until Saturday of this past weekend, so they were working on this even today to complete it. So as I mentioned, a lot of the data is provided by WASPIC. We send them the information, they compile it, and provide it back to us. Some of the stuff that we have here is also pulled out of our local computer system, things that WASPIC wouldn't have. You'll see as you go through the not just the PowerPoint, but the annual report packet. And I want to point out, by the way, that there's two handouts that you have. One is the PowerPoint, and hopefully we can follow along with that fairly closely with this presentation. And the other one is the annual report, which contains all those slides that you see in the handout, and then additional slides as well. So why do we do this? We want to give you an idea of what's happening in the city and what the police department is doing and the service that we provide. I wanted to point out, too, that in the words of Mark Twain, there are three kinds of lies. You may have heard this. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. So we're making every effort to give you the real scoop here on what's going on and not try to slant it in any direction. It's just the chips fall where they fall. So Chief Eklund wanted to add a kind of a new wrinkle or twist to the annual report this time. And you'll see as we go through this towards the end of it, there's some comparison data from agencies that are listed as our comparables. Agencies such as Port Orchard, Kelso, and a number of others. I want to apologize. First off, there's an abundance of slides up here on this presentation. It was supposed to be 10 to 12 slides that I had isolated for this. Unfortunately, the font size required it to be one slide, 2 slides per page, so it turned out to be longer than that. But I'll go through them rather quickly. So with that, we'll start with this obviously is merely the cover. This is as you can see, the budget and what we had to work with. I'll point out some numbers that are a little bit more striking, I suppose. We can kind of overlook numbers that look self-explanatory. But if you look at capital outlay, for example, budgeted was 0, and then expenditures was $41,468. That's because we didn't have any budgeted capital outlay items, but as the year went on, we decided to make some purchases of 4 separate vehicles to keep our fleet maintained. And those monies came from other areas than capital outlay, but we were able to replace 4 cars with that. There isn't a great deal of total budget difference, as you can see, from 2009 through 2012. Next slide is the grants. Talks a little bit about the grants that we've obtained over the years. And one thing that you'll probably see if you look at this is that over the years these grants, a lot of them federally provided, are going to be more difficult, less frequently obtainable. So you'll see that number going down oftentimes, just as the trend, as you know. Calls for service. What we find in this particular slide is what we almost expect to find. You have two areas, the downtown area and the Mountain View area, that kind of lead the way. Well, those areas have commercial businesses and they have residential housing communities. And so they get a mix of various types of calls and kind of lead the way. There's not a significant difference from line to line in any one of those neighborhoods, I don't believe. You'll see well, if you look at Northcliffe, for example, there's a 16% difference shown, and really the numbers over the years are not that significantly statistically diverse. As you know, in 2012, we began a new reporting system to the federal government. It's called NIBRS, is the short word for it, but it's a National Incident-Based Reporting System, when before it was an entirely different system. It's been a work in progress. These are the type of crimes that are reported to NIBRS, these types of crimes being crimes against person. You can see that the homicides, for example, we had none in 2009, 10, and 11. And you know that we had the double homicide in 2012. And when you have low numbers in any one area, it'll significantly impact your percentages. We haven't really put our finger on the other major percentage change there in the wrong direction, and that's the sex offenses. I'm not exactly sure why that number is spiked up that high, but we'll definitely be taking a look at that. It's an eye-opener. Similarly, this is NIBRS reporting for the property crimes. And again, if you take a look at the top statistic for arson, you'll see a massive change there from 1 to 6. But over the years, it seems to be not too unusual to have that sort of a swing from 0 to 5 or 6. Motor vehicle theft. That seems to be, well, it's down 12%, but it's right on target with pretty much where we generally are. I counted them up last week, and we're at currently about 33. So those numbers don't seem to change a lot from year to year. Another segment of crimes that we track. Similarly, you don't see a lot of change from year to year on those. Stolen recovered. You'll notice in the line for embezzlement, there's a pretty significant change from 2009 to 10 to 2011, 2012. Well, the Uniform Crime Reporting System didn't track this as NIBRS does. And so 2012 is actually researched and plugged in there. That's not a very good, I don't think, indication of what's happened over the years with embezzlement. It just wasn't tracked as it has been in 2012. So in the next few years, you're going to probably see that stabilize to some extent. I will say, though, that this year that $112,000 was really, for the most part, one business that was fleeced or reported to be fleeced out of that much money. And so one huge embezzlement can have a significant impact in terms of dollars. Here's what I'd mentioned earlier on in the presentation. The chief wanted to do something a little bit different and give you an idea of what's going on in other places. And these are the cities that we looked at. These are cities that are listed as our comparables for bargaining purposes. Basically from 7,500 roughly to almost 12,000. You see the calls for service vary greatly, but I'd say we're about average there with 10,000 plus calls, and we average about 10,500 calls a year. The number of office, we're kind of right in the middle of the road there. I will point out the Poulsbo, I contacted them recently. That number should be 17 as of this year. I'm not sure that if they were at 16 last year and that's what they reported, but that number should be 17. I wasn't able to get a hold of Cedro Woolley and verify 14. However, that's what, and it breaks it down with the chief, a lieutenant, etc. So I'd say hopefully it's an accurate figure. Here's what's going on, or what did go on, over the course of 2012 from one jurisdiction to the next. You can see that we're kind of leading the way in some areas that we don't want to lead the way in. It would be better if we had lower numbers than all the other agencies. And this graph is much easier to actually comprehend if you had the other page at the same time with it, because it gives you the population, et cetera, of each of those jurisdictions. It's more meaningful when you have the other page to review at the same time. You can see burglaries, for example, we're at 176 and higher than any other agency, although there's one or two that aren't too far behind us. This is just an additional listing of different types of crimes, again, that compares the cities. I had a question about the line that indicates stolen property right there, where it shows us at 41. And I'm just hopeful that everybody's reporting that the same. These are actually recovered firearms that were reported stolen, recovered vehicles that were reported stolen, things of that nature. So that doesn't really explain, when you look at it, what truly that statistic represents. So I thought I'd mention that. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, this the calls for service, relatively steady over the course of the last few years, and roughly averaging about 10,500. These calls used to be, several years ago, they were up as high as 12,000, and that seemed to be our level of running. But we made some changes on what we actually call a complaint, and so it brought it down to this number. So I'd say we've been relatively steady at this level of activity for much of my career here in the 20 plus years. Patrol activities, it's self-explanatory. One of the things I'd like to point out is the DUI cases. If you look about halfway down the page, you'll see a fairly significant increase over 2011, and basically that's one or two officers who really do a fantastic job out on graveyard shift and hunt down drunk drivers. One of them being Mark Hinton. He's doing a fantastic job of that. Sergeant Heldreth is also very motivated to find these dangerous drivers out on our city streets, and they're arresting a lot of DUI drivers. You'll see some decline in numbers on this page, and a lot of that is impacted by the loss of our parking enforcement officer position. And so naturally your numbers are going to go down in infractions, not just parking infractions, but he also wrote other types of infractions as well. So you'll see that reflected on that particular page. You'll see some changes on this page, and there's a couple of reasons for the numbers changed as far as my analysis is concerned. If you look at assault, for example, you'll see a 27% increase from 18 over the previous couple of years to 23. We've now been forwarding domestic violence assaults to our detective division, not for them to follow up on like they would typically a felony burglary, for example, but merely to contact the victims and make sure that they don't need any further service, that they have all the answers to the questions that they might have. So they're getting those cases forwarded to them. Again, we have a high number of increase in the sex offenses that were forwarded to them, just as that previous stat I pointed out, and that's concerning, and not sure exactly what the cause of that is, if we can identify that. This page, again, is like some of the others. It's self-explanatory. It tells you the type of arrests that we've had. This is broken down in adults in the top blocking and then juvenile. I was a little bit surprised when I looked at the heroin arrest to see that there was merely an increase in one arrest from 2011 to 2012. We're seeing a great deal more heroin in this community, and there were 3, for example, arrests that crossed my desk just this morning, all stemming from one case. But I would expect to see in 2013 that number increasing, unfortunately. This is similar to that previous slide, and this is merely talking about those charged with the sale of these drugs. You'll also see this increase. We've had some activity in our county with WestNet, who is doing a fantastic job at ferreting out these dealers. This slide is just a representation, a snapshot of what we did for training this year. One of our objectives and goals for 2012 was to kind of take on more of a leadership and active role in training. And so we hosted some training here at the Civic Center, was one of the objectives. We accomplished that. And the state mandates that each commissioned officer receive 24 hours of in-service training per year. We set the objective at 30 hours instead of the mandated 24, and we achieved that, and we were very, very satisfied with that. This is just a small reflection of what our records office does, the daily activity that they perform, and you'll never walk in and see them sitting on their hands, I assure you of that. They're very busy in there. This slide represents the promotional activity that occurred in 2012, starting, of course, with my promotion to the lieutenant's position, and then Mike Fiola promoted to the position of sergeant. Happy to report he's doing a fantastic job in that position, and he's working tonight, so I feel much safer. Harry Heldreth promoted as well this year, and I already mentioned that he's out working graveyard shift, actively pursuing those DUI drivers. Joe Bellamy is our newest hire. He returned from the academy this year. He was hired in 2012 and completed the academy early in this year, I believe it was. When did he complete the academy? Within the last several months. But he's doing a fantastic job. The academy staff was very pleased with his activity there, and I went up and observed some of the stuff that he performed in at the academy. I was extremely pleased with what he was able to accomplish. I think this is our last slide, and it's a short snapshot of the reserve program and what they have done over the year. Amazing number of hours they've put in. This has never happened historically here in this department. Very pleased. And you'll see the value of the services, the last item down there, $70,657. But that's not the important part as far as I'm concerned. I can count on them when a function needs to be performed, and they're always there. They'll be here working on a Saturday doing the parade route when everybody else is enjoying their cotton candy. and they're happy to do it. So they perform a great service, and we'd have a difficult time without them. So I believe that concludes the presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Not a question, just a comment.
Yes, sir.
I've had a lot of people come up to me and really appreciate the downtown foot patrol
Yes.
that's been going on. Lots of comments on that. I think that's a really good thing to have going on, and people are recognizing it.
You know, thank you for pointing that out. And it's one of those things that when you don't have a lot of money to throw at positions and create opportunities to impact crime, if nothing else, you can hopefully make people feel safe in their community just by your presence, and that's what the objective is there. Thank you.
I do want to thank you for your presentation, and I want to thank you for your service to this community. And you can tell all of the officers that we have here, including the reserve officers, that you are very greatly appreciated. And we're looking forward to continuing to work together with you, the community with you, working to bring crime down. And it's just not you, it's us keeping our eyes and ears open and being in communication with your department and letting you know what's going on out in our communities. So any other questions or comments then? Thank you very much, Lieutenant Watson. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, we have a proclamation that Commissioner Pinnell is going to read. It's the Public Works Week proclamation, I believe.
Yes, I'm glad you're all here to hear this. I know you're here for other things, but I'm glad you're here to hear this because it's important. I'm going to read this proclamation, and then I have a few things to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works Director, and he's going to talk for a bit. So this is a City of Shelton proclamation, whereas the American Public Works Association has declared the week of May 19th through 26, 2013 as the 53rd Annual National Public Works Week. And whereas the 2013 theme, Because of Public Works, is a tribute to all public works employees who create the foundation of a stronger, more livable community. And whereas the City of Shelton recognizes public works services are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and that the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depend upon these facilities and services. And whereas the support and understanding of an informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as engineering services, environmental protection, facilities and public buildings, recycling, sewers, solid waste collection, streets, storm drainage, vehicle fleet maintenance, and water. And whereas the efficiency of our qualified and dedicated personnel of public works is materially influenced by the citizenry's understanding of the important work they perform. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Shelton, Washington, in conjunction with the American Public Works Association, does hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 26, 2013 as Public Works Week, and calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing public works services and to recognize the contributions that public works professionals make in realizing it is because of public works. Signed this 20th day of May 2013. So I'm going to present Greg in just a little bit with a copy of that to share with the troops out on the street. And I sat down to think about what I was going to say tonight about this, and realizing how important all of those folks are out there. And I started thinking about all of the people that I've been associated with over the 12 years that I've been here. And I realized that I have gone through, if you want to look at it that way, 2 mayors, 3 commissioners of finance, 5 public works directors, 3 community and economic development directors, 3 city engineers, and 3 city administrators. And that's in 12 years. The constant in all of that has been all of the awesome folks out in the field, some of whom have been on the job for 20, 30, even 40 years. They are and have been quietly, diligently, and effectively going about the business of keeping Shelton functional. There have been changes at the top, but the people on the street have remained the same and are truly, truly an awesome bunch of folks. So my heartfelt thanks go to Greg, Donnie, Tracy, Nicole, Mike, Jason, Ken, Kurt, Craig, Brian, John, Mike, John, Jerry, Bob, Dennis, Clint, Sam, Gary, Matt, Todd, Bob, Scott, Mike, Matt, Ken, Wes, Tony, Brent, Jesse, Roger, Tom, Chris, Joan, Donnie, Bart, Louie, Joanne, Grace, and Mark. Thank you to them all, and happy Public Works Week. And now I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Commissioner Pennell, Mayor, Commissioner Mike. I just can't say enough about how proud I am of the people I have working for me. The list you just wrote off, 38 wonderful people that, like you say, kind of work behind the scenes. A lot of their efforts are at night and on those rainy days when the storm drainage is roaring and the snow's a-flying and they're out there. I just personally want to thank them for their dedication and service to this community. All of them are heroes in my mind. And this proclamation speaks of the kind of the theme for this year being because of Public Works. And it kind of is that lead in to all the different things they do. And so I thought I'd just, touch a little bit on the different sections of Public Works. We have the water section, which we have 6 employees in that group. And of course, all the drinking water that we take for granted that is just, you turn on the faucet and it's not full of bad things, and you can shower and cook and do all the things with water, your lawn. I mean, it's reliable and trustworthy. And the guys work hard keeping it that way. We've got 4 well houses, 1 spring well house. We have 4 big tanks, and we're planning 2 to 3 more tanks in the near future. And we, of course, have miles of distribution line and hydrants that all are exercised and made functional so that when the fire department has a fire, they're ready to go. Our sanitary sewer system, of course, we just completed in the last few years a couple of new treatment plants. And those not only take all that wastewater and dispose of it properly, now it protects our Oakland Bay and is going to champion for commerce out there, we're hoping. It gives us a lot of opportunity for growth. And we also are taking the biosolids from that and making fertilizer. So if you're interested in looking at what that looks like, there's a little booth right out here in the lobby that we set up that have a whole bunch of pictures and some display information. Of course, one of them is a little bottle of the biosolids fertilizer that's available for the public. Should you want some, get a hold of us. We'll be happy to fill you up a 5-gallon bucket or a pickup load if you want.
Use it sparingly.
Good stuff. Of course, we have our solid waste group, which do not only the garbage pickup every week, or every other week, but they do the recycling now. And all of that's getting moved to the right places. Our street maintenance guys, there's 5 of those, and they not only do the streets, but they do the signals and all the pothole repairs and snow plowing and all the different things that over the years, the overlay program, sidewalks, you name it. Storm drainage is also part of the streets group, and of course, we've got a lot of drainage basin projects going on right now, and there's more planned. So we're continuing to work towards better storm drainage, and of course, kind of the avenue of storm drainage is water quality now, is moving into a lot of that. And then our engineering group, Mike heads up here, that does all the design review, construction monitoring. We basically do all the processing of paperwork for the grants. We go out and get the grants. I mean, he just does a bang-up job keeping that all moving, and all the guys in the field aggressively pursuing the constructions done properly. And then we have our facilities management section, which Kurt heads up, and that has 4 players that, we maintain all of our buildings, and we also do all the custodial services. So a big group of people, well, actually a pretty small group of people for all that effort that they do. And so I just want to thank them publicly tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Clark, and we do appreciate what you and your group does for the city, and so you can relay that message to them also.
I will.
All right. Next is our weekly commission reports. Commissioner Pennell.
Thank you. I will be attending lunch on Thursday in honor of Public Works Week with the crews over at the shop, so looking forward to that. And just wanted to mention this last weekend, we had several things going on in Shelton and had lots of folks in town, so got a chance to see our beautiful town. Had folks up at the Bluegrass Festival from as far away as Chicago and New York, and I think even New Zealand. There was somebody there from New Zealand. And then there was a disc golf tournament going on at the same time, and also a district track meet. So it was a busy place. So lots of good things happening.
Commissioner Olson?
Tomorrow I have a Mason Transit Authority board meeting. Thursday I will fit in lunch over there, along with, I have a mental health and substance abuse committee meeting. And one other thing I wanted to add on was also on Thursday, there's going to be what they're calling a Mason County Veterans Stand Down. And this is taking place all day long up at St. Edward's Catholic Church. And if you know a veteran or any of them, there's a number of homeless ones in town, get the word out to them that this is a really great event. They're going to have the ability to enroll in health care, your benefits, be haircut showers, there'll be a medical van. There's also a job fair going to be going on with employers up there, schools and training programs to really help these people that have, done the ultimate sacrifice for our country. So just want to get that word out that that's a really big deal for the veterans on Thursday. So it's up at the St. Edward's Catholic Church. So get that word out to them. Thanks.
And I will be also attending that luncheon event out at the city shop there on Thursday. Looking forward to that. A lot of great cooks work for the city, and so appreciate that. All right, that ends our weekly commission reports. Next is a general public comment period. If someone would like to speak, we have this opportunity 2 times during our regular commission meetings, and this is the first opportunity here. We have a few people, I think, signed up. So, thank you. We'll just go down the list. It looks like first is, I'll just say Barbara, so I don't mispronounce her last name. Starts with a W. Yep. Would you like to speak first?
I prefer to speak later.
Very good. Next is Joe. Father Joe, come up and speak to us today. We appreciate you coming.
Good evening and welcome, and thank you for allowing me to make a comment or two, and want to talk just briefly about some things that are happening in the city. I wanted to give acknowledgement to the city for some recent efforts in terms of trying to discover how to deal with the issue of poverty and homelessness here in Shelton, and I understand you went up to Olympia and learned some things about how we could maybe address some of those issues. So I wanted to call that out and say thank you also to the business leaders of town, of the downtown core particularly, and to the chamber. So I've been here about 2 years and have been working with homelessness as a part of what I do here in town. And I wanted to offer this letter signed by about 60 plus people who have some concerns about some of the issues around homelessness, because we have been having a generous outreach by the community. But I'm going to try to stay within this 3-minute time frame. I may exceed that, and I hope I can read fast.
We won't arrest you.
So here's the letter, which I'll turn over to the commission after I read it. We work daily with a variety of groups and individuals who volunteer time and money to provide home-cooked meals, hot showers, and cold weather shelter for a large number of people who simply need that help. We serve dozens of Shelton teenagers, military veterans of war in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Some have severe mental issues. Some are families with children living in their cars. Some camp in the woods near our town. The great majority of these needy people have roots or connections in Shelton. They have one thing in common: they are poor. More than 24,000 meals were served at 6,500 families were served at Saint's Pantry's Food Bank last year. More than 24,000 hot meals were served by just one of a number of volunteer groups. The cold weather shelter provided over 2,000 warm beds to people when the wind chill temperature was below 35 degrees. And more than 2,500 people were served with hot showers. Community groups, agencies, and foundations provided over $60,000 to make sure this could all happen here. And we understand this. We want to help us see this as a community problem found across our country and the entire world, and for that matter, it needs to be addressed by the whole community. We gratefully acknowledge the strong support from many groups and individuals in Shelton and Mason County. Unfortunately, there is another side to the story. There are those who believe, providing only anecdotal evidence at best, that the people we serve are outsiders, drawn by free food and shelter. This argument is used universally by those who wish that the poor and homeless would just disappear. This argument is damaging, but it is also factually unfounded. It overlooks the fact that Mason County is one of the poorest counties in the state, and unlike some others, stays gripped by the most severe economic situations faced in almost a century. The notion that the removal of these poverty-stricken people from the old downtown core will be a major factor in the economic recovery is frankly unsupported by any evidence provided to date. Our scriptural wisdom reminds us that as a community we reap what we sow. The everlasting truth of this clearly tells us that the neediest ones in our community are part of the us, not a separate, inconvenient obstacle to prosperity. How we treat them says a lot about us as a community. Some claim that the presence of ragged, disheveled people on the streets of the core of the downtown Shelton have been a major factor in business failures and the reluctance of new businesses to settle there. There's probably a kernel of truth here. Still, much likelier and stronger causes include the years-old decision for Highway 101 to bypass the old downtown core, the sorely frayed infrastructure, long-deferred street maintenance, the shuttered buildings, higher rents for retail space, the clear migration of business from the older downtown core to the area known as Mountain View, and most recently the prospect of the development of Shelton Hills on the west side of Highway 101. Ironically, some of the poor and disadvantaged people we serve are actually victims of the very same business failures falsely attributed to them. What does this all mean? We live in a town with a robust mix of businesses and service providers that include citizens from many different social and economic backgrounds. Some need help, and many are able to provide help. Poverty and homelessness are a major community problem. We could play the blame game and scapegoat those least able to even present their case, or we can agree to own up to this community problem and join together to address it. If we are to succeed, we need clear leadership from this commission. To begin such an effort, we propose a vigorous joint program to collect relevant data so we all deal from facts rather than from opinion or innuendo. We appeal for your support and participation. Thank you.
Thank you. You can give it to Vicki Look right there, and she can make copies or something for us. Thank you. Next is Toby Kevin.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm formerly known as Hugh Kevin for the record, but everybody calls me Toby, and I won't need 3 minutes. I would like to add a few points of emphasis to what Father Joe said. In my experience, there's been a tendency of people to refer to the folks we're talking about as homeless, and of course, some or many of them are, but not the majority, as I can best tell. We see a lot of children, the family that are living in cars. I didn't mention earlier that I work with Father Joe and approximately 300 other volunteers who are Community Lifeline. The people we serve, we describe as being underemployed, unemployed, poor, and needy people. And I call them The ones that we hear about who are one paycheck away from dire poverty, well, these folks have missed that paycheck, many of them. Like me, many of them are veterans. I was lucky. Moving along, I want to amplify what Father Joe said about the kind of support we get. Now, we mentioned some of the negatives in that letter. There's an awful lot of positive and an awful lot of gratitude to go along with that. A sampling, we've got over a dozen churches in town who are active participants in the meals that, the 22,000 odd meals that were served last year. The Chamber of Commerce is an active participant. City Commission has a presence at our stakeholders meetings. We see Commissioner Olson, people from the staff, Steve Goins comes to mind. Business community, there's been an activity called Stone Soup, where one of our members has engaged a number of businesses to agree to basically once a month provide a meal, but then to recruit other businesses. Many local providers of social services, some of whom are here. But above all, I was surprised last year with what I'd call a grassroots response. And you can see this thing I'm wearing here, which says, "Support our shelter." Joe and I sat down in November and ran the budget, and we said, aha, if we don't do something, we close the doors the 1st of February. So we passed the word around, and one of the things that was done was to distribute these Support Our Shelter buttons for a $10 donation. That was $5,000 that we took in from a letter that was written in the paper, another $10,000. Overall, through grassroots, individual contributions, we raised $20,000, and that put us through the end of April. All has been said, and a lot's been said. What would we ask the commission to do? Continue your participation, and we would ask for an active leadership role. You're in a position to, better than we, to influence these many participants and many stakeholders, if you will, to join into a serious effort to deal with the issues. Help us promote the idea that it is a community-wide issue. It's not an issue that do-gooders have embraced at the expense of other people. I think I'd like to mention that we're well aware of what may be the preeminent issue or problem as viewed by many of the citizens and business people, and that is the disruptive behavior of the clients that we serve. And it's a practical reality that Father Joe and those of us who volunteer only have a limited influence over the disruptive behavior. And so that's an area where we really need to face it as a community, law enforcement and other people, in order to deal with that. But overall, we ask you guys to lead and help us pull the whole city of Shelton into this. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next is it Patricia Sells?
Yes, my name is Patricia Sells, and I'm here as the Mason County Housing Coalition Coordinator. Our coalition is made up of social and human services agencies that are working in the area of concern of homeless prevention and affordable housing. As mentioned in the letter that was read, poverty and homelessness are a major community problem. To that end, there are social and human service partners in Mason County currently taking a hard look at the way we are investing in people in crisis. We realize that we need to shift our focus from keeping individuals comfortable in their crisis to helping them move across the bridge to self-sufficiency. Mason County has developed a proposal to the Community Foundation, which is currently being considered. Our goal is to reorganize our efforts so that more people are contributing members of our community. Our Bridge to Prosperity Learning Institute is scheduled for August 28th through 30th, and I would hope you will join us to learn about poverty and more importantly, effective approaches to move people out of poverty. To bring about any change in the world, the first thing that must change is the heart and minds of individuals and communities involved. Before change in behavior, policies and programs can be implemented that improve the lives of those in poverty, the consciousness of people must first be changed with respect to poverty. Only then will their compassion be unleashed and external change be manifested. Our county needs a strategy to address poverty and to make changes at a systemic level. Our priorities must be realigned to match our values. It is my belief that everyone has a right to basic human needs: food, water, shelter, basic health care, basic education, and freedom from fear. I believe that working together can make a difference for those in poverty in Mason County.
Thank you. Barbara, did you want to talk now?
I believe all of my statements have been
Okay, very good. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. Yes, sir.
I didn't get my name on the list. Could I take Barbara's spot?
Yeah, you can come up here, but you have to put your name on the list. Are you going to, or Barbara's going to deem the rest of her time to the gentleman from the south or something like that? Is that how they, I guess they do that in the United States Congress or something, so just name and address, please. That's good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the mayor for letting me do this. My name is Steve Russell. I'm the director of Saints Pantry Food Bank. And I'd like to really tell you put a face and some numbers, accurate numbers, on the problem. Last week, for 2 days, on the 14th and the 15th, we gave food to 995 individuals. That's open 5 hours in 1 week. We gave out close to 10,000 pounds of food. We see the problem. It's huge and it's growing. We like to say that Saints Pantry was founded 30 years ago and we've been trying to go out of business. Not going to happen. Father Joe mentioned that we took care of about 6,500, he said? 6,500 families. That breaks down to being close to 55,000 individuals last year. We gave out over 600,000 pounds of food. This year so far, we've had 19,513 individuals. We keep accurate records because we want to make sure that when someone comes into us for food, they're in the right place. By that I mean that they live within the area of Shelton, because we have other food banks, Hoodsport, Belfair, Matlock, etc., that we can direct them to that can provide better service for them depending where they live. We also keep track of the homeless that come to us. Now this number, 19,513 individuals, only has 18 homeless in it. So it's just not the homeless that's the problem. It's the problem of people here in Shelton. And some of our clients, if you could hear their stories, you'd bring tears to your eyes. And we need the help of the city of Shelton to solve this problem. Last week, let me steal a number from Joe, They gave out 628 meals at dinner. That's an awful lot of people looking for food. So I wanted to give you those numbers so you can get a real idea of the scope of the problem. We're on pace this year to do better than we did last year. Wish we weren't, but we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Tom Davis. Mr. Cooper, let's let the other two people hear, and so you can sign. We'll let them speak first, and then you can speak. Put your name and address right there. Mr. Davis, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Tom Davis. The problem of homelessness is a sober and somber issue, but in some respects, it gives as much as it takes. And by that I mean, when you go as a community and part of an organization, and you go down and you help throw together some meals and feed people, it's not like everyone is walking in that room as it's their last day on earth. They respond just like anyone else to humor, to a little conversation, a little warmth. I can tell you from personal experience that there's no one shy about coming up and saying, that was a good meal, or we appreciate that, or something positive. So sometimes when we hear the issue, and it's always surrounded by the words, dire and a problem and trouble, we need to know that it's not a problem as much as it is people in a particular situation at a particular time in their lives. Nothing more. Could be you, could be me. Thank God it's not, right? But it brings the community together for the best of all reasons. From this, you launch a better community, a community that galvanizes and coalesces around a problem, and then goes down as a community to serve that problem, and then incorporates those people back into the community and throws them literally a lifeline, is a better community for it. It's not all a one-way street. And it's not all altruism or selflessness. You get something from this. Nobody does everything entirely for selfless reasons. They leave with a good feeling. I can tell you personally, and my friends will say the same thing, there is no better way to spend your day than helping somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next is Tracy Moore. Okay, speak on a different event there. Mr. Cooper, do you want to come up and say a few words?
Thank you very much, Commission. I'm Forrest Cooper from 409 West Railroad. And my comments tonight, Vicki handed me the board at the beginning of the night, and I said I wasn't going to talk. But after seeing the police report, the annual report, I just had a couple things I wanted to say in regards to that. One is thank you very much to the police department. They have been a lot more open over this last year. I've been down here in business now for almost 5 years, and I've been seeing more and more emphasis on the downtown and protecting the downtown, which is really good to see. We tend to be considered one of the block watches for the 400 block because we have surveillance all over our building. And so I've constantly been saying to all of anytime something happens in that area, use us as a resource, come and see us. And this last year, we've really seen them doing that, and I appreciate that very much. Anything we can do to help out with that. There was a string of burglaries this last year I thought were really interesting. A gentleman felt brave enough to go in through the front entrance door of a few of the local businesses down here, and a couple of those the owner didn't even report. They felt like they couldn't report it, like there was going to be repercussions. So we tried to do our part to help them know, you can go to your police department and report these things, and they will help you. I also noticed that most of the businesses that were affected by those burglaries didn't realize that they didn't have what's called a lock guard on the front bolt of their building. So that started to bring to mind something I'd like to suggest to the department, is to possibly come up with a plan that can help the businesses better secure their locations. And they do a quick walk around right now, but something similar to what the fire department does. You know, they come and make sure you're being safe. Well, maybe there could be something where once a year they come around and make sure everything's secure. Another thing, right after those burglaries took place, I noticed a couple of the patrol cars the following nights were shooting their spotlights into the storefront windows downtown, and I felt that that was really effective. It was a great deterrent, and I was hoping to see more of that. However, we haven't since. We have seen a bit more foot patrols, and that's good, but there's just my 2 cents on that. I appreciate what they've done, and I'm glad that they're really listening to the concerns of the business owners downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. What I will say is to the group that's here, that just spoke a lot about what we just heard about, is that the City Commission has talked about this issue, I believe, on both of our last retreats. And as Joe knows, him and I have had several one-on-one conversations, and there is a lot to running a city that occupies our time. This is not something that we just have forgotten or we shove off and we don't think about it. There is many elements to this and many different representative groups that have talked to us about different solutions. As you said, there are some people that believe just look, you know, stop feeding, they'll go away type of a situation. Okay, I don't think any of us are like that. But we do listen to what the businesses community says, what the residents are saying, what you're saying, and we have talked about it, and I think we all have to admit there is no silver bullet. There isn't one thing that's going to take and be the right answer for Shelton for this issue that's going to take care of everything. But we are listening to what you're saying, and I appreciate you coming and talking to us, and I would imagine that we are going to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do to work together with your group for an answer that Shelton can accept as a whole for this situation. And it is growing. It is growing. I recognize the numbers are immense. And so on a personal note, I do appreciate all the hard work you do and the people that do what you do, because it's definitely something out of your heart to help somebody in need. And so we do recognize that and appreciate that. So that's my little statement on that. Thank you for coming. And now we better get on to our meeting because we've just spent 1 hour. Any other questions or comments about this issue? Commissioner Olson, I know, goes to, I think, most of your meetings. And he shared some things with us. And we're trying to figure it out, I guess. The whole city is trying to figure it out. And so all I can say is be patient. Thank you for coming. And we are hearing what you're saying. Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Could I please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 80934 through 81051 in the amount of $587,785.53. Payroll warrant number 69158 through 69347 in the amount of $613,037.09. Federal highway project funding, authorize the mayor to sign when received back from local programs. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of May 6, 2013.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Before I do that, I have one correction on the, not to be nitpicky, but this will prove to you that I do read them. On page 5 of the minutes, under public comments, you referred to Mayor Tarrant.
Oh.
So
Simple mistake.
With that change in there, I would approve
Thank you.
approve the consent agenda as read.
Wow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda passes. Thank you.
I did.
That's because he was here that night.
I did.
Yeah. Anyway, moving right along, under old business, we have a Canyon Creek Overflow Conveyance Project Award, and that's going to be presented to us by Mike Michael.
Yeah,
our city
and
engineer.
we're all probably wondering, what? I thought we did this last week. Unfortunately, we had a very odd occurrence happened after we awarded this last week. In finalizing, putting documents together, and actually preparing a request from the low bidder to review the documents, we found that our low bidder actually was non-responsive. Their bid bond was not properly executed and therefore was invalid, which made their bid invalid. So we had to rescind the award to them and come back to the commission this evening to actually re-award to our lowest responsive bidder, who is actually, Roglins Inc., at a new price of $365,000 even. So staff is asking for commission to act on that this evening and recommending that you award the project to Roglins for the total of $365,000 even. It's still a good bid. There are a couple issues with the bids that we were also finding as we're starting to look into putting this briefing together. It appears that bidders 2, 3, and 4 accounted for a discrepancy in the bid. It included traffic control in their mobilization charge, where we knew for sure that the previously thought responsive bidder didn't, was actually looking to a change order to cover those costs.
So, Mike,
the estimate, the numbers we talked about, other than $60,000 difference, more like a
$30,000 net difference by the time you factor in that change, approximately.
Yeah, that's correct. We were, Bob Tauser and I actually were talking as we were putting this together and looking at it realistically. We figured somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 for the traffic control piece, which appears to fit that differential between the mobilization charges real well. So yeah, our net change is in the neighborhood of about $20,000, $25,000.
At this time, we do have to ask if there's any public comment on this action item. And if there is none, I again want to refer to our commissioners if there's any other comment or questions about this issue. If not, you are recommending to have me, the mayor, sign this and return it to the contractor. And so I guess I would like to request a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that the commission award the Canyon Creek Overflow Conveyance Project to Roglins Construction in the amount of $365,000 and authorize the mayor to sign all documents when they are returned from the contractor.
Second that?
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is item number 2, and that is the IT network infrastructure. And that will be presented to us by our administration assistant, Vicki Look.
Good evening, Mayor Krantz and Commissioners. I talked to you a little bit about this project last week, and we had the award form in the packet at that time. But I did need to get the scope of the project and also a contract from the NDM so that we could present it to you. I see that we did get the information, the scope of the project in here. The contract didn't make it in. And I did have it up and asked for a legal review, make sure that to see if Kathleen had any comments on that. She got back to me and said she didn't, that the contract looked fine. So if you have any questions about what we're going to be doing, I will try and answer your questions. And if I can't, I'll have Terry step up and help me with that.
First, could we ask if there's any public comment on this action item? Seeing none, is there any comments or questions that we have for Vicki Look?
Just that this is a much-needed upgrade. We've been limping along with our software for quite some time, so it's good to get this updated and get into the modern
Looking
era.
forward to that, getting a new email system and all those sorts of things. So, well, I would ask you to award the bid to NDM tonight, and we can sign that award form, and then I will bring back the contract and the exhibit to you next week so that it'll be in your packet and you'll be able to review the whole contract and exhibit along with that.
Commissioner Olson, did you have any comments or question? Okay, could I make a comment? That was a joke. I'm chairing the meeting. Yeah, I think technology, you've got to be on top of it. And I know that, if you're not, it costs a lot more time and hours and all of that stuff. So I think this is sorely needed and we need to move forward on this. And so if there's no more discussion, I would request a motion at this time.
I would move to award the contract for the network infrastructure upgrade to Network Design and Management for an amount not to exceed $82,391, and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement on behalf of the commission.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion, a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very good. Next item on the business is, it's the City of Shelton Police Guild Agreement, and that is also presented to us by our Management Assistant, Vicki Look.
Well, thank you. I'm real excited to be talking to you about this tonight. I did present this last week, and I kind of gave you the fiscal impacts of the contract, which are outlined in your briefing form. And since then, the Guild has voted, and they approved the contract, and their representative has signed it. And so it's just left for the commission to ratify the agreement, and we can move on.
Is there any public comment on this action item? Seeing none, I invite my fellow commissioners, if they would like at this time, any comments or questions. We've been talking about this for a long time, and so, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the City of Shelton and the Shelton Police Guild Agreement effective for the period of May 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2015, which is also good news in itself.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. There is no new business at this time, but I'd like to turn this over to our City Administrator, Dave O'Leary. If there's any administration report, it looks like city businesses licensing something was on my notes here.
Yes, Your Honor. I put that on there just as a heads up that staff is ready to drop that proposal. No, you guys need to go forward and do that based on some of the feedback and other things. I think it's proof. So the other thing on the report is tomorrow I'll be making a presentation before the League of Women Voters. This is kind of a presentation of a year ago to Poland, and with a also just to talk a little bit about the most recent trip we took and talk about cannabis in the Netherlands, some city officials over there, and also a little bit of a brief visit in Italy as well. So that's it for the administration report.
Very good. Thank you very much. This is the other opportunity for general public comment. Tracy, would you like to come up and talk?
Tracy Moore, 611 West Birch Street. And for one thing, it was kind of nice. We did have the positive reports tonight, the Public Works Week, and also the police report, which is always very interesting to me. It was also uplifting to me to see such a large group of citizens coming and speaking about their efforts to try to solve the issues of homelessness and poverty and hunger in our community. I think it's really, really amazing that we have such a number of people who work so hard and so continuously to try to solve that problem. I wanted to speak really briefly about the historic signage that was presented at last week's meeting. I was on the preservation board for not a million years, but 20 years. And I, for one, really appreciate the design of the signs and all the thought that went into the color and all of that. I think that the historic district signs are way overdue, and I think that the directional signs are a good idea as well. But what I mostly wanted to talk about tonight is the meeting a couple weeks ago that you just spoke about with the business license and inspection of rental units. And I don't really care that much. I think Steve made it pretty clear that the city was not going to recoup any money made from enacting those things. But what we cannot do is disregard the testimony that Gail Strauss gave us about the number of children that are living in unsafe homes and the effect that it's having on their lives, on their health, on their schooling. So maybe the landlords that were here, who all are doing a good job at inspecting their homes and not wanting to raise the rents if something's found wrong with those homes, maybe they are all really, really good landlords, but I think given Gail's statistics, we still have a problem, and so we need to come up with some way to deal with that. And congratulations to the landlords that are doing everything they can. That's good and that's important, and we need to continue to improve our housing in the city. We need more housing, and so I think that anything we do to retain and repair and rehabilitate our existing housing, we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Administration, final.
Any touches? Touch.
One quick touch. Next week, you will see a briefing on Canyon Creek Overflow Project with OTAC, the designer. We're going to move forward with adding Pine Street as a new paving element of our contract with the state. And therefore, we have some opportunity to redesign a portion of that overflow project to save some money.
Okay.
All
Other
right.
touches? I think that's it, Your Honor.
Okay, we just passed our public comment period, Tom.
I had my hand up.
Yeah, okay, we'll come up for 3 minutes then.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt the proceedings. I have just two observations. Once, I'm very disappointed that out of hand, the city has decided not to have business licenses or inspection of the rental units. A policy without teeth is just a wish list. So I feel nothing will be done here to make our community better and safer for all of us unless we aggressively and proactively address some of the issues that the tenants have with the residents that they're living in. It's just a shame. The second part I would like to say is that no one objected to the negotiations with the police department for good reason, because we all support the police department here, and I know Lieutenant Watson personally, and I respect him immensely, but I would be remiss if I did not say that these statistics are dismal, and there needs to be something, there needs to be either a new approach, but there needs to be something done. Shelton can't be the outstanding, be the city that's outstanding in so many negative characteristics and categories without all the tourism and proposed development suffering. We need to do a better job, and I think that he would agree also. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 28th, because there must be a holiday on Monday. So it's Tuesday, May 28th at 2 p.m., and that's because in observance of Memorial Day. That's right there on my notes. This meeting's in...
There was also a Parks Board meeting before that meeting.
Oh, yes, before that is a Metropolitan Parks District meeting also at 1:45. Our meeting is at 2 o'clock. Thank you for the correction. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.